going to share my screen. Um, Let me just make sure. Okay, so it is recording now. Um, so we'll, keep it short and sweet for you to get you back to work, and then, answer any questions as we go along. I will stop and ask a couple questions, but if you know, see something and you want me to go further in depth, definitely stop me as we're kind of going through this. Sound good?
Okay, I will.
Awesome. So of course, when you hop into our demo software, well, our software here, this is actually going to be what you see every time. So of course you'll have a spot where you can answer any common questions. You can review our training catalog. And I like to special highlight this because we do have our help desk available. And of course, that's going to be that phone number for the help desk and then the email address. So you can always click here if you have any questions while getting a deal completed. But otherwise, you'll actually just hop into the start new deal every time. And we're going to go ahead and run through a New York deal just because I know that they do get a little lengthy sometimes. So you'll just select wherever you're registering for your customer state. And then where it says dealership, you'll select from the dropdown your dealership that you're titling for. I am going to use our demo partition, so that's why I'm putting in Title Tech. And then do you guys have a DMS provider?
Uh, a what
Do you
now?
know? Like a Wayne Reeves or Frazier, CDK?
Uh,
Not that you know of. Is that what I heard?
yeah, CDK.
Okay. CDK. Gotcha. So we do offer integration with CDK, which means that if you guys do decide it would be beneficial for your business, all you would have to do is take that deal number that's generated from CDK and then load it into our software. Instead of that not found, you'll actually get a green check mark, and then it fills out the rest of it for you. Everything that's been input by your sales team. So just something that makes it a little bit easier for you. If you guys decide manually is going to be a better option, of course, you'll just go ahead and put in the VIN number, load that vehicle. It'll pull over your vehicle type. You'll just have to select what kind of purchase type you're doing. We offer 3 different choices. I'm going to show you the finance deal so you can see where the lien goes. And then, of course, if you're doing a plate transfer. From here, 2 different options to move the deal forward. So you can do a full deal or a fee calc only. Fee calc still gives you that guarantee on fees, but it's not going to provide those DMV forms at the end. So I'm going to show you what happens when you run a full deal, but you do have that separate option just to pull fees.
Got you. So let me ask
Yeah.
a question for you,
Mhm.
briefly.
Yeah, of
So in
course.
our case, where um, where I deal with, several different dealerships up under our umbrella,
Yeah.
um, would it be a different fee because I deal with several different dealerships up under our umbrella, or would it still be just one fee?
For processing the deal, or are you talking about the subscription?
The subscription.
Okay. So generally, whenever we do, you know, start any sort of implementation, we go off the amount of dealer licenses you have. So
Okay.
however many dealer license will have their own separate system, and
Okay.
you
Gotcha.
would be able to have access to everything.
Okay.
And we can talk a little bit more about it, but you can also choose the type of access that everyone has. So if multiple people need to be available for different dealerships, you would just make sure that their names are included on all the logins requested. You can always add or remove. There's no penalty or no extra charge for that. Um, but generally speaking, yes. Do you
Okay.
guys have, are y'all all under one, I guess, CDK? Oh, what is it that they called it? Like one partition or one F&I login, or do you guys have a different CDK for every dealership? I think
So
that's the best way to
in that,
ask that too.
got you. So in that aspect, we use a different one. We use gosh, what is it?
I know it's early on
I
a
can't
Friday.
think of it, but it's a thank you. It's a different gosh, I can't even think of it, but it's a different service we use, and no, they all have different logins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do know that generally we have to charge per. Not necessarily log into individual systems, but just if each of your dealership has a separate like CDK that they use, then we would have to charge per separate. But we can talk through if that makes sense. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make sure it fits your business needs, and hopefully we can show you here that it's something that does look good for your dealership, and hopefully partner with you. But I'll go deeper into what that pricing structure looks like if Crystal didn't cover it. We'll do that in the area where we're talking about kind of the purchase information for the vehicle, because that's where you put it in anyway. So, moving it forward a little bit. So, just any important notices that you need to know or any key points before processing your deal. In the state of New York, transfer restriction and emission notice. But of course, it varies per state, right? I'm sure you know that as well. Now, this will pull up any deal that you're working with this VIN number. I am going to go ahead and load my deal with Crystal here because I know she told me she would be a good customer today. And that everything would run smoothly for her. So we're going to go ahead and, use her as my example. Now, I will say you only have to fill what's in red, but at the end of the day, putting in everything that you can is just going to make your life easier when you get to the forms. So for instance, I'm going to go ahead and put in a middle name, last name, give her a date of birth and a driver's license. You can even go as far as, well, I may just put in this Salem Boulevard. Unfortunately, I'm not great at knowing where states and city and county are, but we'll go ahead and put a street address so you can see where it pulls over. Then whenever you move everything forward, of course, we do have your vehicle information. If this VIN number has not loaded that year, make, and model, you just hit load again and it'll pull it over for you. I like to put in a title number, a color, an odometer, just so that you guys can see how that, pulls over into the paperwork at the end. And then, of course, just knowing that if it's a used or new vehicle and previous title stayed on a used. But we'll keep it simple and do a new vehicle. Now, whenever you do get to trade-ins, of course, I know you guys do see some trade-ins sometimes. You can put up to 5. Now, if you ever need to do more than 5, and I really hope that you never do, we do offer up to 8 slots for you to just call in and say, hey, I need additional slots added. Like I said, I really hope you never get to that point because I know working with multiple trade-ins is just so much of a hassle. But the option's there if you need it. And then, of course, you can add in that trade-in lien holder. That way you've got it on the title for the transfer or the trade-in. Then here is where we'll spend a little bit more time just because I want to make, all of our pricing breakdown and all this taxable stuff clear. So we are doing a Chevy Tahoe. Whenever I pulled the sales price, I did pull it off a website. Right now, they're charging about $49,000, $50,000 for it. Now, of course, you can decide if you're going to ship it, if that's yes or no. I'll come back to this NAT processing fee because that's what we charge you guys. So I'll make it the last thing I talk about on this page. But we do have our fee calculator. Now, as I told you, everything in red needs to be filled out. Whether you guys do have any advertising charges or not, just make sure that there's a 0 in the box if you don't. Just so that you can see how this affects the tax calculator, we are going to go ahead and add some accessories, warranties, and rebates. And then, of course, some document charges for the state of New York. After that, it'll define what's non-taxable. And then this cap cost reduction, so a trade-in allowance if needed. But that does bring us back up to this NAT processing fee. So this is what we do charge you. Now, I believe Crystal probably talked to you about our charge, but per deal, we do have a $90.98 fee. What that breakdown looks like is the fee calculation for $34.99 and the DMV forms populated for $55.99, totaling out to $90.98. Now, whatever you've got in this box is what you're going to charge your customer. And I know what a lot of my dealers will do is per deal, they'll actually bump that up because of the, $90 subscription that we do have. And a lot of them find that charging just a flat rate of $200 that does cover their subscription cost. And after their 12th deal that's been running a year, they've already covered that yearly cost that we have. So it's completely up to you how you guys like to operate. But of course, everything after that is just some profit in y'all's pocket. And it's why I recommend it. Otherwise, if you do want to break it down by, I think she said you guys see about 10 deals, just, adding 9 to 10 extra dollars on top of that fee. That way you can cover the subscription. Whatever's going to work best for your business.
Okay.
But I know that you did have some questions about that earlier on. Did that kind of, I guess, answer those questions that you had?
So just to talk about that a little bit. So it's
Mhm.
$90.98 per deal,
Yes.
and you were mentioning an annual fee. So there's a fee on top of the $90 and 98
Uh,
cent.
it's a monthly fee, so it's that
Mhm.
$90 a month, with the transactional fees of $90.98. And that's why I recommend upcharging to your customer. That way
Mhm.
you cover that subscription cost. And then actually by your 12th deal, you're making some profit.
Okay.
So, like I said, it is completely up to you guys how you would like the dealership to work. And of course, how you want to handle those deals. But that's what I recommend to all of my customers.
Got you.
Awesome. Are there any other questions that you have on this page or any feedback you have for me right now?
No.
Okay, perfect. So, we'll go into lien holder. So this is where you're going to put in all your lien holder information. You can add in any additional if you guys have them. Otherwise, of course, just put in who your lien holder is, their tax identification number, and their lien holder code. And then I did go ahead and put another address in here. That way you could see it pull over in the paperwork.
Now I do have a question for you on this one.
This one?
Like you were saying that everything in red is mandatory. So I
Mhm.
know for New York the actual lien holder code is mandatory. So why isn't that in red?
So this is for you to move everything forward in the system. And what
Mhm.
we can actually do is some of my dealerships like to make sure that whoever's in the system can't move past this. So we can make additional fields red. But
Okay.
this just means that if you've got the customer in front of you, and let's say that your F&I is doing this, or your sales department is actually running through this first part of it, they can keep
Okay.
that deal moving forward
Got you.
before it maybe gets to your desk or gets to F&I. Whatever process works best for y'all.
Okay. And does your system provide the lien holder codes, or is that something that would still have to be
And
looked up on our end?
unfortunately, not just because it
Okay.
varies per state, and per lender, which I'm sure you know just as well as I do.
Right. Yes.
So I do wish that we had that ability, but unfortunately at this time we don't. The
Okay.
good thing is once you put it in, it'll actually save it and then you can pull it from the drop down.
Okay.
All right. So then
And what
of
if they
course,
didn't have a lien holder? Do you just put NA or
oh,
just put no?
so up in the beginning, you have an option to choose what purchase type they did. So if it's a lease
Okay.
deal
Got
and
you.
maybe you're not financing, or if it's a cash deal, you can select those
Okay.
options. I just wanted
Got
to show
you.
you where this lien holder information goes in. That way you could see it.
Okay.
So, for registration information here, of course, pretty easy. It's some yes or no questions. You select your county and your city. For insurance information, I did want to put a couple things in here so we could see it pull over. Just show State Farm, policy date, expiration, and number. I know not every state allows you to request a paper title, but I know New York does give you the option. And then, of course, I do want to spend just a couple extra moments talking about the DMV contact. So we have two options for you always. You can always use the DMV. I know that a lot of times the DMV is just a little bit slower.
Mhm.
Sometimes they do take, that 3 to 4 weeks to get everything processed. And even with you sending it over directly, it's just the DMV. You can they do it whenever they get to it. Um,
Right.
so what we've actually seen a lot of our dealers doing is starting to use private tag agencies.
Right.
I don't know if you've used one before, but if you have, then you know that they're a
Yes.
lot more personalized. They're just a lot more motivated to get your paperwork done. And
Mhm.
even though they do have a fee associated, you can always charge that back to your customer as well and just collect it
Right.
as part of their fees. So I know our Maggard Inford Associates in New York actually turns deals in about 2 to 3 business days, as opposed to, the DMV taking sometimes that 4 weeks. So it's all about what's going to be best for you guys and best for your customer. But I always like to mention that. And I'll actually leave them on there so you can see where the fees come and get calculated in. But before I move into that fee calculation, was there anything up to this point that you wanted me to go a little bit further into depth on?
No.
Okay, sounds good. Now, whenever you do get to the calculate fees, I like that our system actually differentiates. So you will not be charged until you hit this calculate fees. That's where that initial $34.99 comes in. And then on the other side, whenever you hit the print registration forms, that's where that other $55.99 comes in, totaling out to that full $90.98 per deal.
Okay.
So, of course, the two most important numbers here is the total taxable amount at the top. And then as you scroll down, total amount to collect from your customer. It does give you that breakdown of everything that is, tax, title, and reg fees, our agency fee, and then the NAT processing. And then we also provide you with a line-by-line breakdown. So all the title and reg fees here. Additional fees will always be NAT and the agency fee. Then, of course, the taxes breakdown, we do go down to the county level. And then if you guys do ever see any reciprocity state or reciprocity tax, it'll calculate that for you too. So Title
Okay.
Tech is located out of Florida in our system, and that's why you're seeing that tax amount owed to Florida versus New York. But that'll
Right.
actually be your state instead. So as you can see, all of that added up here does total out to that 45.19, and that's what you would add on to the that number at the top. And I don't know if Crystal had mentioned this one, but we do have a guarantee on all our fees. So as long as you put in the information correctly on the calculator, if for whatever reason we tell you to collect the wrong fees, we will actually cut you a check
Okay.
because we stand by what we tell you.
Okay.
And then also just any additional notices. So it'll just remind you of that emission notice. And of course that there's a safety inspection required. It'll tell you about any VIN or smog inspections as well. So just information for state. And then of course, once you get to the sprint registration forms, that's where that other part of the charge will come in, totaling out to $90.98 for your deal. And, we'll kind of walk through very briefly what these forms looks like. I really just want you to see where it's, pulling over that information. So of course you see with Crystal, it's got her driver's license, date of birth. You do have the vehicle information. Then of course the lien information is on the title. Now, all of our stuff will give you this one section where it says stop, please pay attention to check payable to. Of course, your notice of lien. What I like about our system too is anything in yellow does indicate that there is a wet signature required. So this will let you know, hey, make sure your customer signs it with her in front of you. I do know some places still allow Route 1 or DocuSign, but I honestly don't know which ones do. Then, of course, lien information on the bottom. This one will probably be your best friend a little bit. I like to pull New York, honestly, because once you see this title app checklist, everything else looks really easy. I'm not even going to lie about it. But anything that is in red is just going to indicate something that the DMV has noticed is getting left off of the applications or the paperwork that they're requiring. So, of course, this one
Mhm.
is just please make sure it's completed and signed. Which I'm not gonna lie, I did think that was obvious, but apparently it's not always.
Right.
But I think it's also easy sometimes to just overlook parts of it. So just things that they highlight. Now, New York is the only one I've ever seen that has 2 pages. But this one does have your transfer plate information and then, of course, the PTA two-step process. There's one additional step if you're using a private tag agency. So for payment information, since we did select the Maggard Inford Associates, it will have that make check payable to and then who we selected. It also lets you know who the DMV is. So if you ever want to send it to the NYS commissioner, you can as well. It'll just tell you where to cut the check. And what I absolutely love, because I cannot remember addresses, I can't. It'll give you the address line by line, give you the phone number, and tell you what the fee is if you're using a private tag agency. Of course, it'll be 0 in the box if you're not, but you can always reach out to them and say, hey, what's going on with my deal if you need to.
Okay.
Then you can decide where you want the license plate to go after it's been processed. So if you want to send it off to the owner, you can. Of course, if you want to come back to your dealership, you can do that as well. You would just fill in their information here and then check the option that you would like.
Okay.
Now, this one's just for the private tag agency, but I would definitely just make sure that you read through this. That way, if you do need any additional or a proof of corporation, you know what you can collect. Then we do have our Department of Revenue forms. So, it's just got some of this information populated over for you. This is why I say put in everything that you can on the front. That way, this just gets so easy to fill out on the back end. You're no longer typing, just Crystal's information. This is the NAT deal summary breakdown. So it'll just show everything that we put into the deal. More Department of Revenue forms.
Now let me ask a question for you because I have a lot of instances where the finance managers will go in and they may start a form and
Mhm.
typically, it's just them going in to calculate the fees, but they'll do a little extra. And then
Okay.
once I receive it, I'll go in and do the actual forms. Um,
Yeah.
so if that's the case, are we going to get charged that fee twice because I'm
No.
going in and actually? Okay.
So the one thing that I do want to stress is just make sure that you're working out at the same deal number. I mean, I'm sure
Okay.
you'd rather do that anyway, so you don't have to pull the
Right.
customer's information a million different times.
Mhm.
But once you put that deal number in, as long as you stay in it, you're not going to get charged, 10, 3, 5 times, however many times you have to do this. You can go in
Okay.
and change any of their information, add, subtract any information that you need to. Because once you see that check mark for fees calculated and forms generated, you're not going to get charged again for it.
Okay.
So that also goes for the finance department. If they do need to pull it back up at any point in time, they can.
Okay.
And then, of course, the last page here, just that odometer and damage disclosure. So it has that odometer reading and indicates again, we do have a wet signature required. So, I mean, I know I tried to do this a little bit quicker because I, was a little, I feared that might have been a little time constraint for you. But I mean, honestly, this is what I mean, everything that you would do whenever you walk into the system. So I guess
Mhm.
my question for you is, did you see everything that you were hoping to see today?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then how do you think this could impact the current process that you guys have?
Um, it would just put it more back on us. Like we don't really do a lot of hands-on with some of our states. Some of them we do, some of them we don't. Um, we just look over it and make sure everything is there, but we don't actually fill out the forms themselves.
Mhm.
We just make sure all the information is there, and then we ship it off to some of the agencies. So we use several different agencies. Well, not several different, but we
Yeah.
use different agencies depending upon the states, and some of them we actually do ourselves. We just
Okay.
send it off to be processed. So
Yeah.
with New York in particular, since we're talking about New York, we just make sure that the information is correct, all the forms are correct for the information that's needed, and then we send it off for them to fill out the form, and they process it, or they send it off to, in their case, they use a private agency,
yeah.
um, and then it's sent back to us already completed. So it
And
just
then
means
I
that I would
guess
have to
you
fill the
have
form.
to, yeah. And I guess from there, are you taking the metal plate and are you sending it back out to the customer or has it been sent to them? Do you,
So the agency sends the plate out with the label that I send to them. So
gotcha.
I generate the label. Um, I gather a packet together, which includes all the forms and the label and the UPS package. Send it to them, and they send it off to New York to be processed. And then once it comes back, they use the label, send it to the customer, and then send me the receipts, and it's been processed.
Yeah. And I mean, this is just from me and Crystal talking. I heard that one of the biggest things for you guys was just the fee and tax breakdown. Just making sure that it was, I guess, the most accurate that it can be.
Right,
Is this something that you could see, helping you guys out and just kind of ironing out some of those kinks in the taxes?
right.
Okay. So I do want to go ahead and, hand it back to Crystal. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, but of course, just to let her talk through kind of some next steps for you guys and, what you guys want to do moving forward. But I'm going to go ahead and stop that now.